the basil of the house, the caring, sensible, loving wife, the first woman to embrace Islam, the mother of the believers, Khadijah bint Khuwaylid. The caravan's return was approaching, and Mecca stood up preparing to receive it. Khadijah began thinking about her money and her trade, among the thoughts crowded in her chest. When the good tidings came announcing the caravan's approach to Mecca, people's interest increased and movement increased in homes. Readiness in the homes of merchants to receive their trades and calculate their profits or losses. Readiness in the homes of the porters who transported these goods for a fee. And readiness in the homes of the helpless and poor who were accustomed to receiving good things on such occasions and to be favored by kind-hearted people when their trade returned profitable. The mothers' eagerness for their children increased, and the wives' eagerness for their husbands increased, as no one knew who would return and for whom fate intended that he would not return. When the next morning came, the noise became louder in the streets, the movement intensified in the homes, many people went out to the outskirts of Mecca, and Khadijah was getting ready as the people were getting ready. Her maidservants were happy, talking to each other about the gifts their mistress had promised them if her business was profitable and everyone in it returned safe and sound. When it was the middle of the day and the time approached for the afternoon, Khadijah went up with some of her maidservants to the second floor of her house and began to watch the road anxiously, while her maidservants fixed their sight to give her good news of what would please her and to congratulate her first, until the caravan appeared from afar rushing to Mecca. So Khadijah felt her heartbeats change and speed up, her vision trying to stretch beyond its capacity, the camels growing bigger in her eyes little by little, and the features of the caravan becoming clear little by little. Then one of her maids shouted in joy, "Muhammad, my lady! Muhammad and Maysara next to him!" Muhammad was on his camel, Maysara was next to him on his camel, and behind them were the other camels carrying the goods. But Khadijah saw a wonder. The entire caravan was traveling under the scorching sun rays, except for Muhammad, who was traveling in the shade. Above him was a cloud that was limited to him alone with its shady shadow, not sharing with him anyone, not even Maysara. Khadijah thought that she saw this cloud alone, whereas her maid shouted in astonishment, "Do you see, my lady? Muhammad is in the shade and everyone is in the sun. It turns, my lady, wherever he turns, and it leans where the camel leans." Khadijah did not answer. She kept looking at the caravan until it reached Mecca, then stopped. The camels began to kneel down, and people rushed to their children, fathers, and brothers, extinguishing the fire of longing and asking who had returned and who had stayed behind. Muhammad and Maysara went to Khadijah's house. She received him with joy and kindness, but when he approached, she was astonished. She found in his face that bright sun that she had seen in her dream. She saw this light flooding her house like that light, overflowing onto what was around it, then extending beyond it. She greeted him and he greeted her. Then he went home and sat to receive his uncles, relatives, and lovers. As for Khadijah, she went to her stores, examined her trade, then stood looking in astonishment. "What is this huge profit that Muhammad brought?" said to herself. "What are these many goods that he returned with? How did he buy all these goods? And with what money did he buy them?" She was astonished by the types of goods and their value. So she exclaimed to Maysara in amazement, "What did you do, Maysara? What is this huge profit? How did you get all this? Amazing, Maysara. What happened?" Maysara quickly smiled. "The blessing of Muhammad, my lady," said Maysara. "We had hardly reached the city of Busra and entered the market with the caravan when the buyers gathered around us. Our goods shone in their eyes, as if there were no other or similar goods in the market. And Muhammad showed skill and cleverness in selling until we finished selling our goods in a short time, while the merchants around us were looking in astonishment, and some of them even began to shout in astonishment, 'What is this, Maysara? Goods other than ours? Ways other than ours? Or an agreement before we arrived?' Khadijah said in amazement, 'But the prices of our goods that you sold do not meet the prices of what you bought. Even if you sold them for double the price, for 3 times, or for 4 times.' Maysara replied proudly, 'The blessing of Muhammad, my lady. Allah was with him in buying, just as he was with him in selling. He did not enter the market as a buyer until the sellers called him and gave him their goods, as if they wanted to offer them to him without a price. He did not offer a value, but they accepted it. And the people were confused, wondering about this merchant who preceded the merchants, and the one with the face that attracted hers. Our merchants were perplexed by the mother of Muhammad, who sold expensively and bought cheaply, to the point that some of them said in astonishment, 'What happened, Maysara? We said that you had made a deal with the buyers before we arrived. Did you also make a deal with the sellers?' Khadijah's pleasure increased, and she said gently to Maysara, 'Tell me, O Maysara, your conversation in coming and going. Do not leave anything without telling me about it, for I have seen that you have great admiration for Muhammad.' Maysara said with a smile, 'The matter of Muhammad is amazing, my lady. I told you about buying and selling and the success he achieved in them. People may say that this is luck sometimes befalls some people, and they may say that is a skill that he was able to use in an atmosphere prepared for it. What do you think, my lady, about the wonder of the sky? The weather was hot and scorching, and the sun's rays were like fragments of flame. We did not leave Mecca until we took shelter from it with turbans, doubling them, and with whatever umbrellas we could use that protected our heads alone. As for Muhammad, the sky shaded him and spread a shadow cloud over him and his camel. It went wherever the caravan was going and did not leave us until we reached the Levant. It stayed with him from morning to evening, and then gathered round him again when the sun rose again.' Maysara was silent for a while, looked at his mistress who was overwhelmed with astonishment, then said in astonishment, 'People were in astonishment at the matter of this cloud that limited its shadow to Muhammad. If they moved to seek its shadow, it would move away from them, and if Muhammad moved, it would move with him.' Muhammad withdrew himself from the people and engaged in deep thinking. He did not speak unless he was asked, and he did not participate in any of the fun that some travelers used to do to alleviate the desolation of the road and the hardship of travel. Then Khadijah woke up from her thoughts and said to Maysara with a smile, 'And what did Muhammad do in the Levant? Was he pleased with its trees, orchards, gentle atmosphere, people, and everyone in it?' Then Maysara hurried, 'Muhammad did not participate in what the merchants made there,' said Maysara, 'and he did not like anything that appealed to the people. Rather, he marveled at Allah's creation, at what he had done for man, the ripe plants and towering trees that he had placed in the earth, and the waters and rivers that he ran in it. He wondered how Allah created our country as a desert with no vegetation, no water, and created in the Levant gardens of entwined growth, grains, grapes, olives, pomegranates, and vast gardens, and how its air was thin and our air was burning, its heat was mild and our heat intensified, how people lived here and how they lived there. Oh, my lady, he was always thinking. He let people go wherever they wanted, and he stayed where we stayed, pondering and thinking, until the time passed and we prepared to leave. My Sarah was silent for a while Khadijah was lost in her thoughts. Then he said in even greater astonishment, "Do you believe, my lady, that this man may be the prophet that people have been waiting for and have been saying that his time has come?" Khadijah noticed and said in astonishment, "What do you say, my Sarah? And how did you come to this opinion?" My Sarah resumed, saying in astonishment, "We lodged at Busra, my lady, and Muhammad under one of the trees, which was nothing different from the rest of the trees that we saw. Near this tree was the cell of one of the monks. Then that monk stuck his head out of the window of his cell. When he saw Muhammad, he rushed to me and asked me anxiously, 'Who is this man that is sitting under the tree?' I told him that he was a man from Quraysh. Then he shouted anxiously, 'Has this man been sent?' I said in astonishment, 'What do you want? What do you mean by this sending?' He said in a confident tone, 'If this man has not been sent, then he will be sent with Allah's message to the people, for no one sat under this tree except a prophet.' Khadijah's confusion intensified, and she recalled her dream from beginning to end. She recalled her cousin Warqa ibn Nawfal's interpretation of her dream. She also recalled the image of Muhammad and its application to what people talked about the image of the Prophet whose time was near. Then she said to herself in confirmation, 'If this is not the Prophet they are talking about, then who is?' Then she returned from her stores, put on her going out clothes, hurried to her cousin Waraq ibn Nawfal, and narrated to him what she had seen and heard. So he shouted in astonishment, 'This is not a man like men, Khadijah.' She asked eagerly, 'Is he expected to be the Prophet, Waraqah?' Waraqah replied with a smile, 'It may be Khadijah. His attributes apply to what I know of the holy books. But who knows what Allah is doing? Who knows to whom He will limit His dignity and virtue, and to whom He will raise above people?' Khadijah returned to her home, determined not to miss the honor of prophecy, which evidence confirmed it was for Muhammad, and to marry this honorable young man, for whom there were things hoped that no other people could hope for. Khadijah began to think about that prophet who would be sent to fill the earth with justice. She no longer thought about anything other than the prophet and his prophecy. But how will she propose to him? And how will she do if he refuses? Next time, we will tell you how she acted in this situation.